Hey guys, Andrea, welcome back to the channel. Guys, I have just finished listening to and processing um, Dr. Jordan Peterson's podcast. Yes, he does have his own podcast now. It is amazing. So, guys, I will link it below, but it was Minister for Social Services Alberta talking about how they're tearing tent cities down. So if you guys don't know, Canada and America have major problems with tent cities, with unhoused people. Unfortunately, they're not just homeless encampments or unhoused people. They go into the horrific details of the drug abuse, the alcohol abuse, other abuse. Guys, it's too early in the video for me to mention it, but other abuses that go on about this one as well, and how they've revolutionised their approach to homelessness and how they've literally torn down several of these tent cities. Literally, the cops go in, they've got buses there, they're working with existing non-governmental organisations, so faith-based organisations and existing homeless shelters. They've got what they call a navigation centre set up, purpose-built, that says, hey guys, if you're interested, if you get on the bus that's warm, because we've got to remember in Canada it's going into winter over there, it's warm, it's safe, there's a hot meal waiting for you, and there's showers, there's all of the intervention services you need. So it might be something as simple as getting an ID so you can get into an apartment. It might be a pharmacist giving you a prescription. It's physician and nurses checking you over. It's mental health support. It is wraparound intensive support. There's a receipt. It's kombucha. So it's a really interesting debate to have around wording as well. And I think I need to do a podcast explaining my background, explaining the wording, looking at a disability wording guide. There's many advocates that watch on YouTube and TikTok. Guys, I'm sure they would reach out. But again, if you want to like, share, subscribe, comment, I'll see you guys in the next video. Sorry guys, had to take a quick phone call, but it is intensive wraparound support, and it's identifying mental health issues, drug and alcohol addiction as well, and it's getting rid of the gang mentality and the outside the law mentality. They're actively working with the police and the politicians to put policies around homelessness, around mental health, around disability, to get these people on the right track. And Dr. Jordan Peterson kindly offered his future authoring program at a very low cost as well. But it was interesting to see a politician whose background is he grew up with his father running a homeless shelter. And I know I used to volunteer at a local soup kitchen that has now done the wraparound support thing and job skilling, because it can be intergenerational trauma, and they're dealing with the trauma, they're dealing with energy prices, they're dealing with cost of living in a really positive, holistic way. And this is another reason why I'm saying Jordan Peterson is starting to make a lot of sense, and a lot of people are coming round to him. And there's a new round of people discovering him after the Destiny interview that was such a train wreck. I honestly cannot get through that episode of the podcast. I had to turn it off and go over to my other staple, No Such Thing as Fish, because his point of view just seemed to be so idiotic. That was Destiny. But this guy is a cabinet minister. Its portfolio is social services, and the way that they're reforming social services through having accountability, through having statistics, through having data retention of long-term outcomes and tracking these people, seeing where they end up, is amazing. Guys, these tent cities are not helpful for anyone. They're not ideal. There's gangs in them. There's stolen property. guys, it's far enough into the video, a human trafficking. So that's child and women trafficking for sexual reasons as well. And so, guys, that's creating its own inherent trauma, as well as drug and alcohol addiction. And a lot of these people had undiagnosed mental health issues. And Dr. Jordan Peterson also goes back into his history when he was actually working for this department when he was 22 as an intern, the statistics and how he was actually the one responsible for setting up the accountability, because there was a major study that he worked on with intervention programs, how they didn't track for outcomes, so it's a fairly famous study by Margaret Montgomery. So guys, I will put that below, and how the Fatal Four was taking kids from low socioeconomic background, primary backgrounds, and taking them away for 2 weeks into a summer camp was not a good idea. And even though they had the wraparound support from parents, church, pastoral care, all of that, it was like, well, if you put these kids together, yeah, unfortunately, it's going to be essentially a training school for criminality. And so this is where they're like, okay, we're going to break this cycle. We're not going to have the summer camps, but we're going to have the school interventions. We're going to have the homeless interventions. We're going to have the meals. We're going to have work with existing organisations instead of replicating it. And so having that classic conservative American ideal of, well, this is a shared collective responsibility. It's no one's it's everyone's responsibility to look after a section of the community, whether that be dealing with disability, whether that be dealing with the homeless, whether that be dealing with drug and alcohol addiction, or whether that be one person, because the undiagnosed disability that's led to poor housing outcomes, poor education outcomes, led to no employment, and that multifaceted outcome as well. But guys, it's another reason to love John Peterson. He's kept digging and digging and digging and digging as well. And I'm not saying I agree with everything he says. You can still like and admire a person, but not agree with all of the ideals he says. But we've got to remember where I'm in Australia, he's in Canada as well. But what he does for common sense as well. And he also talked about deinstitutionalisation. And yes, there were horrific instances of abuse and neglect and even exploitation. He talks about, I think, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, who was written by an orderly there. The solution, instead of bringing them up to standards, was bringing these people into the community. I've seen benefits to it myself. I've benefited from the CARES program in Australia called the NDIS. But it's not great to deinstitutionalise everyone who has psychopathic tendencies, schizophrenia, who need lifetime care. And in Australia, we're actually seeing a debate around some people who are criminals, who've attacked support workers, who've attacked care staff. Should they be in a therapeutic institution? And do we need to bring those back? And do we need to bring them back with more accountability? So it's a really interesting debate. And if you've made it this far, guys, if you could like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll post this to both channels and even over the Rumble. Guys, if we can get it to Dr. Jordan Peterson and he can comment on it, that would be amazing. He is one of my role models in the fact that he has had experience of disability himself in his daughter's fight with juvenile idiopathic arthritis, his fight with physiological medication addiction, and his story about being able to stand up to the woke mob. And that's what I'm fighting against with language. And I've checked the disability language guides, not using anything that people are finding offensive. It was only one person who's saying, hey, this language isn't appropriate. I've got support workers, I've got support coordinators, I've got other fellow people with disabilities who follow me here, podcast and TikTok. Never said a word. I'm sure if it got to other disability advocates and it was email after email after email, yeah, I'd change my language. But it's one person. And guys, this is the thing. You have to be very, very specific when dealing with language. And so if you're saying high and low support needs, well, what does that mean? Support needs change day to day. So is low support needs my level of needs where I need basically someone to check in with me twice a day, someone to take me out 3 times a week? Or is that I'm higher functioning so I can remember to eat, I can remember to drink. I've got my kombucha. Yes, you did hear me right. There's the receipt.